So for 14, the excluded values are 0 and -2. Again, because I got them from this denominator and this denominator. Okay. The LCD is, so we factor out an x, and then when you factor out an x, you are left with x plus 2 right here, and 1 right here. And so because the 1 is the only GCF that you have of now, after you do that, the LCD would be that one, the product of those three. So that gives you LCD x times x plus 2. Alright, so here's the equation set up with the LCD. So on the left side, nothing cancels. On the right side of the equal sign, both x times x plus 2, both of them. And on the last term, only the x and the x. So now what do we have left? I'm going to distribute right here. So that's x squared plus 2x. From here I only have a 1. And then from here I'm going to distribute these two, multiply those two binomials. So I'm going to get x squared minus x plus 2x minus 2. Notice how when I combine like terms, I'm going to subtract x squared and minus 2x. So we're going to have 0, right, because that's gone. This is gone, so I have negative x minus 1, because I've got the 1 minus 2, so that's minus 1. So move the x over, so that gives me x equals negative 1. For number 15, n cannot be negative 8 or negative 1. Again, we get that from the denominators. And then the LCD is just the product of these two, because they don't have anything in common, so we didn't have to do the little factoring, common factors. They don't have anything in common. So then you just multiply them together, and that's the LCD. Okay, so here's the equation. So we're going to go through and cancel out whatever cancels. So n plus 8, nothing in the next one, and then in the last term, n plus 1. Okay, so now we're going to multiply. So I've got to multiply these together, so I get n squared plus 5n. I'm just using distributive property. On the right side, these two multiply, so that gives me n squared plus n plus 8n plus 8. And then on the last, this distributes right here. So 6n plus 48. 6 times 8, 48. Now the n's are going to cancel out, so let me just simplify each side. So this is going to give me n squared plus 6n plus 5, and on the right side I get n squared, 1, 8, 9, and 6. That's going to give you 15. And then 8 and 48, that's going to give you 56. So subtract n squared, so they're gone. And I'm going to subtract 15n and 5. So I get, let's move it to this side right here, negative 9n equals 51. Okay, so then divide by negative 9. So I can reduce it by 3, so that gives me negative 17 over 3. And that's the value of n. So for 16, r could not be 0 or 2, because that's what would make the denominator. I factored it first, and then it's easier to see that way, to find the zeros. And so I get 0 and 2. The LCD, because it's the same for both, it's just the same LCD. Okay, and I went ahead and multiplied across. So now I'm going to cancel any terms that are common. So r minus 2, r and r. Nothing in the next one, and then r minus 2, r and r. So simplify what you have left. R plus 5 minus, now this negative right here is going to affect everything in this term here. So it's going to be minus r squared, and then minus negative is positive 2r. and then 1 on the right side. So I'm going to move the 1 over. So now I have negative r squared plus 3r plus 4 equals 0. So I'm going to multiply everything by negative 1 so that r squared is positive. And factors of negative 4 that add up to negative 3 are negative 4 and 1. So r minus 4 and r plus 1. Okay, so r is 4 or negative 1. And both of those are okay because they're not excluded values. So the excluded values after you factor the denominator are 0 and 5. And now I'm going to go find the LCD. So the common factor in those two denominators is x. When you factor out an x from the first one, you're left with x minus 5 and with 1 for the second one. And because the GCF of x minus 5 and 1 is just 1, then you're done. So you just multiply these. And so the LCD is x times x minus 5. Okay. Alright, so here's the equation. We're going to cancel any common factors. So x minus 5, x minus 5, x and x. For the second one, only the x. And for the third one, nothing. Okay, so on the left side, you're left with 1. Then we're going to distribute or multiply those two. You get x squared plus 7x minus 5x minus 35. And then here we're going to multiply these two, and then don't forget there's a negative right here. So it's going to be negative x squared minus a negative 5 is positive 5x. Okay? The x squares cancel, x squared minus x squared, so that's gone. 7x, so 5x minus 5x, that's gone. So I have 7x minus 35 equals 1, so I'm going to add 35. So 36 equals 7x. And so divide by 7. So x is 36 over 7. Alright, so for 18, since the denominators do not have anything in common, so the LCD is just the product of the two of them. You multiply them together. So the LCD is a plus 3, the quantity of a plus 3 times the quantity of a plus 2, like this one. Cannot be negative 3 or negative 2. So now we're going to go through and cancel any common factors. So a plus 3 on the first one, nothing on the second one, and a plus 2 on the last. Okay? So now I have a plus 2 times a minus 2, so I'm just going to go through and distribute. Okay? I'm going to multiply these two, but then notice there's a negative, so I'm going to put a parentheses just to make sure I don't I don't make a mistake there. Plus 2a plus 3a plus 6. And on the right side, I'm going to distribute the 3. So 3a plus 9. So a squared, so here I get negative a squared, negative, this is 5a, so it's actually negative 5a, right? When I distribute the negative, minus 6. And we'll just bring this down. This cancels, minus 4, like that. So a squared and a squared is gone. I'm going to subtract 3a, and this is negative 10. So that means I'm going to add 10. So that this cancels with that, and so negative 8a equals 19. So divide by negative 8. So a is negative 19/8. Alright, so for number 19, I set it up to find the LCD. I put the denominators in factored form. And so a common factor in all three is p plus 1. So when you factor p plus 1 from the first, you get p, and then another p, and then 1. A common factor in the first two is p. So you get 1, 1, and then just bring down the 1. So the LCD is this. Whoops. Get p plus 1. Okay? Alright, so here's the equation with the LCD multiplied to each of the terms. So for the first one, it's all gone. That. Second one, same thing. The third one, p plus 1. Okay, so now we see what we have left. So I've got p plus 5 equals, and here I just have a 1. And then over here I'm distributing the p with p minus 6, but then there's a negative in front, so be careful with that. So negative p squared minus a negative is plus 6p. Okay? I'm going to move everything to the left. Like that. Okay, so gone, gone, gone. So I've got p squared. P minus 6p is negative 5p. 5 minus 1 is 4 equals 0. So, oops, plus 4. So factors of 4 that add up to negative 5 are negative 1 and negative 4. So I'm going to put p minus 1, p minus 4, and so p equals 1 and 4. And those are fine because the excluded value is negative 1. So positive 1 is fine. So for number 20, the excluded values are 0 and negative 5. For the LCD, a common factor, none of them, there is no common factor to all three, but two of them have an n squared. So I'm going to take out n squared, and so that leaves me with n plus 5 right here. This just comes down, and then a 1 right there, okay, because I factored out n squared. And then two of them have an n plus 5, so I'm going to take out an n plus 5 right here, and then that gives me 1, 1, and then the 1 comes down. So we're done. So the LCD is the product of these two. So for number 20, I can reduce everything here, the n plus 5 right here, and then the n squared right here. So we're just left with 5 equals, and then we multiply those two, you get 4n squared. And then on this side, you have n plus 5 times 1, so just n plus 5. Okay, subtract 5. So 0 equals 4n squared plus n, right? And so I'm going to factor out an n. So that gives me 4n plus 1. Set each factor equal to 0, so this means that n equals 0. And by this one, n equals negative 1 over 4. Because I set it equal, I'll just do it real quick. Set it equal to 0, subtract 1. And so 4n equals negative 1, divide by 4. Oops, not showing. Divide by 4. Okay, now 0 is an excluded value, right? So this one does not count. You can't use it. It's an extraneous solution. So your answer is n equals negative 1/4.